Welcome to Phoenix Rising with Dr. Z. This podcast is all about conversations about healing and rising from the ashes of your grief and trauma. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Zampitella. It is my sincere hope that this podcast is going to give you the words and the understanding to help you heal through your grief and trauma. So these artifacts that you're bringing up I'm hearing are bringing up a lot of the positive parts of your relationship. Is there any part of your
Yes.
linking objects that ever bring up more painful emotion that is, I don't see, I'm never a fan of the kind of the term negative emotion because emotions are emotions and I'm not here to judge it, but that sounded weird, but I know what I mean. But hopefully you guys know what I mean. Um So does it bring up any of those emotions that are more ambivalent, like maybe anger or resentment or anything like that? Or do linking objects for you kind of bypass those more challenging emotions and bring up more of the sweeter emotions?
That's a really good question. I feel like it tends to be the more positive, comforting kind of things. I felt really, so here's the other answer. I felt really burdened by having all of these things to deal with. Um, you know that I'm one of three daughters, but I'm the only one who continued to be connected to my father, and my sisters are not connected to me. So I felt overwhelmed and resentful that I had to deal with all of the things that my father had left. And my father had tried really hard to be a minimalist person, to get rid of a lot of things, to purge a lot of things, to be in a position where it would be pretty easy for me. And it turned out nothing's ever easy like that. But also, the collections were overwhelming. I've got to figure out if I'm actually answering your question. That the mere volume of everything was too much, just too much. Why are there so many rugs? Why do I have these big bronze things? They don't appeal to me at all. What am I going to do with this stuff? And so it's not an individual object as much as the overwhelmingness of the estate. And that's in addition to all of the furniture and all the stuff that I gave away or sold or donated or whatever, donated, gave away. So the negatives are really more from the volume of things.
That's
When
interesting.
I opened up enough boxes and put them on my dining room table and my kitchen island and all of that kind of stuff, there wasn't anything negative. It was all the memories. And oh my God, I've forgotten about that one from that little amethyst fish from, I don't know, probably sometime late 1960s, early 1970s that they'd found somewhere. I don't find the negative.
Okay. That's good. I mean,
Yes.
I was curious I know that after my dad died, it was one thing. I saw my mom walking through the house, like starting to look through his clothes and already pulling out his clothes. Oh my God, I got to do something with his clothes. And I didn't understand what was happening for her at the time because it was almost like having his things around were so overwhelming for her that she was already thinking about how she was going to not be, like imagining what it was going to be like with him not being in the house. And my parents were like stupid in love, like enmeshed in love. Um, Hell and back, and they were still together 52 years. So then a week later, when my mom died, and then I had to go, my parents were not minimalists. My mom thought the world was going to end. So the entire basement was filled with jugs and jugs and jugs of water and cans of food. Now, when I say jugs of water, I'm talking about the Arizona iced tea, and they're in the gallon things. Yeah, like she cleaned those out and put water in there like it was gonna stay. Like it looked like she could have taken care of the entire like block of people if Armageddon came. Um, and my mother also was a very, very artistic woman, extremely artistic, and she collected like those diamond art things. Oh my God, she must have had 50 of those diamond art things. And I'm going, it felt like trying to pick what to keep felt a bit overwhelming to me. And then, so I have this quote unquote estate sale. My parents didn't have it in estate, but let's just say I had an open house for people to come and, whatever. But the very first thing I did is I went through and I decided, well, what am I going to keep? And what am I going to be willing to let go of? And having to make a decision like super quick because I didn't have any time. I had like the weekend for the entire house to get cleaned out. And I remember looking at certain objects and being like, I'm definitely taking that. I'm taking this. I'm definitely taking her wedding ring. They lost my dad's wedding ring, which I was not happy about. Like a piece of furniture. And I knew I only had a minivan that we had rented to drive from Missouri to Delaware. So I knew what I was going to be able to keep was going to be very minimal. And going through and figuring out what I was going to bring was excruciatingly painful because I know I'm going to choke that. I know what they valued. So it was hard to not want to take those things because I knew that they valued those things. So I had to figure out, what do I value of theirs? And what am I willing to relinquish so quickly? And I was in the middle of being in complete shock. And I just remember being extremely angry at people who were coming through and basically like just, "Oh, okay, here, let me." I mean, one woman, oh my God, I wanted to shank her. She was going through my mom's jewelry. Now, I kept a lot of my mom's jewelry, but there was still a lot of like costume jewelry left. And and trust me when I tell you, it wasn't worth, like, my mother just was very particular about like wanting to express herself through, certain jewelry. And we're talking like it could have been a $5 piece of jewelry from it wasn't an expensive thing. But this woman is just kind of, oh, psh, 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 and left some of it out. And I was just like, I'm right in front of you. Like, have some kind of couth, some respect.
Yes.
You are being so disrespect, and then had the nerve to try to talk me down from $3 to like $1. And I felt like saying, no, now it's 10. Like, I'm done. Like, you've
Yeah.
got to be effing kidding me. So going around the house, like, I don't play keyboards. My dad was a musician. I don't play, the piano. I try to play the guitar poorly. Um, but I brought him. I I I I brought one. It's still in my garage. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to hang on till I'm ready. So I don't know where I was going with that, but all I know is that like I can look over right now. If I look over to the right-hand side of my room, I can see the cabinet that we brought. It was this really cool cabinet, but they were so proud of certain things. And my mom would show me, oh my God, do you believe this table that we got? We saved up. We paid for this thing over the course of a year. My parents didn't have a lot of money. Paid for it over the course of the year. Like, they were so proud of it. And I was like, first of all, where the hell am I going to put that? Second, oh, like they just collided. What I wanted to bring and what made sense in the midst of intense, intense physical and emotional, psychological and spiritual grief, and trying to make those decisions. So now I have these linking objects, and there's just a few. If I would have kept everything, it would have felt like a museum. They would have just been piled up. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with people, like, for example, people who have lost like children. You'll often see that they'll leave their rooms entirely intact, and I completely understand why that happens. I do
Mhm.
also know, though, that can also feel burdensome to some people for some of the reasons I just described. Now, I have not lost a born child in my life. Um, I The idea of feeling like you are taking pieces away of that person, of that child, for example, that if you move this, this means that you didn't value what the person was connected to. I had another person that I was working with who she didn't move anything of her husband's, anything, his toothbrush, where he put his shoes. She didn't even move his shoes because, see, these were the last time he touched the things. And I got it. And then she wanted to get her rugs replaced. So she was forced, if she wanted her new rugs, to move all of these objects. And it actually, in a way, and I remember when she came into me, she goes, I didn't realize how bogged down I felt. It's one thing to keep the objects, but I felt like suffocated by this feeling like I couldn't move anything. And I don't push people to get rid of stuff. I just go, that people will move through and they will figure out what they want to keep and what they don't want to keep, over time. Clothing tends to be a tough one for some people. So we talk about, well, what the person that you lost, what did they value? Okay, they were in the military. What about donating those things to like Purple Heart? So that it ends up being a process that is meaningful and intentional, as opposed to this damn woman who is just sorting through my mom's costume jewelry and trying to talk me down from $3 to $1. And I hope that woman watches this or hears this and she thinks about what she did. She doesn't do it again. She doesn't do that to somebody else again. So I guess I don't even know how I got all the way off this topic, but nonetheless, I can just say that I've seen what it's like to have so much stuff and to being forced, again, I'm alone. I was alone too. I was the one that took care of everything. And it felt really overwhelming in a very short period of time. And, yeah, when there's a lot of stuff, you're like, oh, I knew he really liked that rug. That rug, and he got it here, and I know the story behind it. But what am I going to do with that rug?
Plenty
That
of them.
doesn't link, right, but that doesn't link you to him, right? That's not a story. But if you went and got the rug with him, there's a
Yeah.
story behind it. He liked the rug. You know what I mean? Like you might know his story, but it's not your and his story. So a little bit different.
It's very different. A couple of things, probably three things. First is the one rug that I do actually have up on my walls, and I've had it up for several years because he sent it to me as a present, was one that he and I found together, and
Oh,
I flinched at the cost, and so I decided not to buy it, and he bought it, and he hung it up at home for a long time. And then he sent it to me maybe 3 or 4 years. No, Jack was still alive. So 6 or 7 years ago for my birthday. And
oh,
that is the rug, small, beautiful rug that lives in my living room.
oh, cool.
And you're right. So I love others of the rugs. I do, but I don't want to make room for them. I tried, I checked them, I held them up different places, had ideas, and I thought, no, 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 they're great, they're wonderful. Someday I'll figure out what to do with more of them. I gave some to my cousins, all of that, but I don't have that. This is back on the linking objects. I am not linked to I'm linked to the stories of
Right.
them buying the rugs, but I don't need the rugs for that. That's just part of our family collective history. Those aren't objects that do it. The one that does is the one we did together. That's one thing. The second is when my mother died, my father wanted all of her stuff donated immediately,
Hmm.
immediately. And I can't do that. I'm not wired that way. I mean, the clothing was okay. I think I just kept a couple of sweaters of hers. I'm crying while we were doing it, but those weren't the things. But her books and some of her own objects, things that I knew she liked to touch and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. My sister took maybe a box and a half of books. I think I shipped 10 boxes back to Saratoga Springs, and they went right into our storage unit. And I only opened those boxes each time we moved to another place, just as part of that cleaning. But I couldn't relinquish those. Those were the connectivity to my mother. And if I gave all of those away, especially given the fact that we didn't have a smooth, easy relationship, how do I stay connected to her? I needed them all, even though I never looked at them. I needed the mass of them. I needed the volume of them. I couldn't have those go to the library. I couldn't have those be tossed. I just couldn't.
Right.
So then when my partner, when Jack died, I understand. what you were saying about the shoes. I gave away almost all of his clothing because I knew he didn't care about his clothing. And I gave away a lot of household goods because they had no connection to him. They were just our things. They didn't matter. I didn't care about them. And I wanted to get rid of things here. Something because I lost him and I wanted, I don't know, clarity, cleanliness, something. I'm not quite sure what I was needing, but I needed something. And part of what I was doing was that act of giving things away. That helped me. And it helped me a lot. But I didn't touch. I've only taken down one of his paintings in 5.5 years and put something else up there. All of the paintings stay where they are. His shoes, here's where I was going. His shoes stayed in that same place by the front door. All of his shoes, the way they were stacked up, the sneakers and the hard shoes, they stayed there for the longest time. But then after a while, I was ready. And then I donated them, for the ones that still had some life left. Give them a new home. That's what he would have wanted. That's what I wanted. It was okay. It's a timing thing. It was okay. There are things that link you in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
There are things, I think that things that link you over time. And those things like my mom's stuff, that was in the moment I couldn't relinquish.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much whatever my sister didn't want, I took. There were some library books. There are some books that went to the library, but fundamentally, the things that I thought my mother prized, if my sister didn't want them, I wanted them. The end.
Mm-hmm.
And now over time, each time we moved, I've been able to give more and more of those away. And I'm kind of looking forward to sorting them again because I don't need all of these material objects anymore to link to anybody. And that includes my dad, the most recent loss, the most recent huge loss. I loved, as I said, having all those things around me when I first brought them home. But when he died and I was cleaning out his place, I was so, I was cutting deeply. A friend of mine was with me as I was sorting through things like his t-shirts, his clothing. And after a while, she said, Mimi, don't you want to keep maybe 3 or 4 of those? Things that you and your dad did together. Maybe you want to keep those. You can give them away later. And she is a person who continually culls her stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So one last thought on this topic of the overwhelmingness of someone dying and all of the things you have to work through and how they feel. My father, and this is before he died, but my father loved his furniture. He loved this rosewood dining room collection that they had put together from showroom in New York over time when we were living in New Jersey. And he loved the deals he'd gotten on some of his end tables and all this kind of stuff. And he really wanted me to love them too. And he wanted me to take them whenever it happened, because this is a conversation before he really started to deteriorate. And I don't have room for those things in my life. And that's not my life. But it was a hard thing for me to have to keep telling him, I'm sorry, Dad, I just don't want those things. I don't want them. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. They're beautiful what you did, but they're not things for me. I can't accommodate these. They're not part of my life. So he talked about some negative feelings as a part of that. That was pre-death, but it was that same sort of feeling like I'm letting him down, but also this is different than what you were talking about, but some anger because he was wanting me to do all these things and basically pick up all of his stuff and just bring them home with me.
What
Like
an
my job.
interesting point. You had some anger around him trying to push this.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of anger about that.
That must be
It's supposed to
hard.
play in his life. I'm
Right,
supposed to keep it going.
right, right, right.
My
It's
voice
being an
changed. I know
heirloom. Right.
everything was because it had
Everything.
value to him,
Mm.
right?
So you had to
But I said,
sort through
I
what was
just,
valuable to him versus what was valuable to you and make the
yes,
decisions there, knowing that some of those decisions were going to go against what he would have liked to see happen.
absolutely.
Yeah. See, and that, okay.
So that was one that's definitely the negative side. Now that was while he was alive, but those thoughts all carried on as I was
Mhm.
finishing giving away all of the stuff in his retirement center space,
Right.
right? Because we'd fit a lot of his stuff still in there. And what did I want to keep? I don't want to deal with this stuff. I didn't want to deal with the brass sculptures. I didn't want to deal with the heavy stuff. I don't have room for that in my life. So
Mhm.
a lot of annoyance and anger over that. And I guess it's linked in a different way, right? Because oldest kid always really wanted to do whatever it was if I could figure it out that my parents wanted me to do,
Mhm.
often not successfully, but I kept trying. And this was a perfect example of that. Like I knew what he wanted, but I also knew I didn't want to do it. And how do I navigate that? And
Right.
if I say no, if I keep saying no, does that affect our relationship? Does it put more distance between us in a time when we really couldn't afford it?
Mhm. Wow.
So
So what kind of final things would you tell people about linking object that you think might be helpful for them as they're listening or watching the podcast?
I think for something to be a linking object, it has to have meant something to the person, not just to me. So a linking object connects us because we were both at different times invested in that object, like the little sculpture that feels like my father to me, like the cat that feels like my mom, like this because it was a photo I took and
Mhm.
his friend who painted it. And I knew he loved that photo, and I knew also that he loved that moment when he and his friend and I were all together. So I think that's an important thing to recognize for me, at least. It needs not only to reflect my memory of them, whoever the particular person is, but also something that they loved, that
Mhm.
they imbued with their own interest, passion, whatever the thing was.
Sure.
So it has to be shared, in my mind, it has to be shared that way. It has to evoke memories, but more than just memories, because I can tell a lot of stories about all of the things that are here, but it has to be a thing that helps ground me in and with that person. So I feel them and it triggers memories.
Mhm.
So it's that two-pronged thing that I hope other people feel when they think about what a linking object might be for them. It has to feel good. It just has to.
Mhm.
If you don't want to hold on to all the negative things that have happened in your life and your relationships, you just don't. And you want it to bring you comfort and some joy in the memories and what else? There's almost an evolutionary piece to it. Like it can live here not as a museum piece, but as something I really love having around me. The
Mhm.
thing and what it connects me to. Other things I want to say, I think that some of what links us to the object we use to link to others, it can change. There can be something initially that you think, oh, I can feel them through this, and it can fade. I don't know if you remember, but I wore a thumbprint ring for several years after Jack died. It was something a service that the funeral home offered, and I needed that. I needed to be able to feel that. And then after a while, I thought, no, I don't need that anymore. I
Mm.
don't need that material thing. This ring, the one we did together, is the one I want.
Right.
So that's important to me. I also want to say it doesn't have to be things like ashes or an urn. Or for me, I should say, for me, those don't have any material significance. The people I loved aren't in those things. They're gone. And for me, they live in these other objects. So I'm hoping for other people who might listen to this that they don't feel that urge to imbue those things with all of the emotion about the people that they have lost, that there are other things that can sort of live in their world and they can enjoy in their current world. Um, that those become the kind of things that link them.
Mm.
And one final thought, which is we've talked a lot about objects that linked and whether it's a group of objects or individual things, right?
Mhm.
But and this is outside of the scope of this, I think it's important to remember that people are some great linking objects, friends, people who share the stories, people who have been receptacles for the stories,
Mhm.
all of that, they are portals. They're portals back to that person,
Yes,
and it helps keep that all alive.
absolutely. I think it could
So,
be, as you know, the imprint of somebody, our mannerisms, our values, our
yeah.
morals, our compasses, the things that we grew up with, foods that we liked, everything. So I'm hearing you say we don't want to narrow it down only like here. We have some jewelry and we have these sculptures, that kind of thing. It we have to broaden the idea of what a linking quote unquote object is. We have linking objects, but then we have imprints, right? And the imprints being how the person is imprinted upon us. But I do think that those can be very intimately integrated with one another. So thank you so much for being here, for doing this. Thank you for showing I hope for those of you who are listening, I hope you take a few moments to go onto the YouTube channel and take a look at the video so that you can see the objects that Mimi is talking about, because they're really cool looking. So if you have a chance to do that, just pop over to the Phoenix Rising with Dr. Z and see if you can watch the episode so that you can see what she shared with us on video. So again, I think this is a really important topic. It's one I talked a little bit about it in a previous one, but not in a way where I was able to have somebody come on and show them. So thank you so much for doing this. All right. And
Thank you. It was a great pleasure to
it's
do
a
this with
pleasure.
you.
It's such a pleasure. And just to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments or whatever, I always take a look at what you say, put it down below if you're watching it on YouTube or watching this on TikTok, and I will respond to it. Or if you have any ideas or you want to share your own linking objects and tell us about them, that'd be great. And until next time, remember, it takes challenge to awaken the power to heal. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Phoenix Rising with Dr. Z. If this episode helped, subscribe and share it with someone who needs it. We'll see you next time.